Welcome to Lock It Down Sports. I'm your host, Locke Hoover. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You can also check us out at E5280 Sports. That's E5280 Sports. And today on the Lock It Down Sports podcast, you have a missed opportunity from both Georgia and Florida. Games that will affect the national college landscape and what you may have missed from college football last week. And that's where I'm going to start with Kentucky, Tennessee. And this game should have been a blowout. Should have been a blowout. A lot of missed opportunities that we'll get to a little bit later on. But once again, it's the Tennessee defense. I have Tennessee defense does its thing on Kentucky's first drive, keeps them out of the end zone, forces the turnover on downs. Could have been big. Kentucky's right there, chip shot field goal. And the way that game was going, that field goal could have been a big deal, especially that first drive. Once again, Tennessee's first drive, they got in the red zone. Nico got sacked. And here's the thing with this. I was okay with his decision. And what I mean by that is he had nowhere to go. Remember, he's still a redshirt freshman. I know all the hype, but he hasn't played a lot of football at the highest level. And I feel like you saw something this game compared to the Florida game, compared to the Alabama game. Lesser opponent for sure, but it's the decision-making here where he didn't force a throw into double coverage. He didn't try to just, you know what, I'm just going to throw off my back foot, close my eyes, as I'm going down, throw it. You know what? He took the sack because you're already in field goal range. Should have been a chip shot inside a 40-yard field goal, and it was. It was about a 43, 44-yarder. And you're like, all right, I feel good. Inside a 45-yarder. Kicker's been good this year. That's at least 3 points to get on the board in your first drive, which you haven't done very much of getting points on your first drive because you've had miscues. So boom, you kick a field goal, you're up 3-0. Obviously, we know what happened there with the missed field goal. But the decision making there by Nico, to me, you're seeing it. And it's getting better. But I was a little bit surprised with as stout as this Tennessee defense has been. Kentucky was able to gash them. Get some chunk plays, big chunk plays, and Kentucky ended up getting on the board first with that drive. So Kentucky's on the board, leading 7-0. Like, all right, first drive, let's see if Tennessee can get anything going. Well, they did until they didn't. Once again, 3:51 left, about a 50-yard pass, perfectly thrown ball, drop pass. I think that was that Brazil? I think Chris Brazil. Double check that, but I'm pretty sure it was Brazil. Perfectly threw his arms into the end zone for a touchdown. So right there, it should have been 10-3 going to the second quarter. Instead, you're down 7-0. So we moved to the second quarter, and this was something very glaring that it's hard for me to comprehend this, as into the second quarter, that's Sampson's second fumble in as many games. And that seems to be a little bit glaring, a little bit of an issue, as granted, not all on him. Some are on him, some were in the exchange with Nico. She's measured to third in as many weeks. And I thought it was very interesting during that time, in that second quarter, between the second quarter and halftime, he really didn't play. He did not really play much before halftime. I mean, and from when he fumbled early in the second to halftime. Peyton Lewis came in and punched in that touchdown for Tennessee. But once again, the defense kept them in the game after the fumble. You have a field goal attempt. You can't connect. Was that the 34-yarder he missed, I believe? So back to Kentucky, 3 now. Tennessee ball once again. 9-12. Big play opportunity, right? Can't connect. Looked like a pass interference, but can't connect. So once again, 0 for 2 on the big plays. We moved to the 6:52 before half. Tennessee ball. I love them going for on fourth down. It was the way they were at this game. It was a must play, must have, and they paid it off with a touchdown. But you go into half tied 7-all. And it shouldn't have even been that. Excuse me, I set you down 3, my bad. Game should have been 20-10 Tennessee with 3 miscues. You had a drop touchdown and then 2 missed field goals inside the 45-yard line. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because it's like they're right there. They're 1 or 2 plays away from totally changing this narrative. But with that narrative, I didn't understand why I didn't run the ball more in that first half. Because Auburn are all over them. Tennessee at this point just had 74 rushing yards in the game. Auburn ended up running for 328 in the game against Kentucky the previous week. So there had to be some adjustments had to be made. Into the third quarter. Once again, good drive. Your kicker misses a 34-yard field goal. 34-yarder, just completely shanked it. He's 0 for 3 on field goals now, who's been a very reliable, trustworthy kicker. And you shank it. You miss it. Once again, Tennessee makes a big defensive stand on Kentucky in the first drive. Essentially forces a fumble and recovers it. Due to how their offense has struggled, they paid off. They're able to pay it off with the touchdown, with the short field. And what you saw, they got Dylan Sampson back in there, back involved, running the football. And it's only a matter of time they end up running that football. In the fourth quarter, you get a little bit of breathing room as I stretched it later in the third quarter or in fourth quarter with that touchdown. Just like that, though, Kentucky responds. Cut it to 3 on a 93-yard drive with about 5 minutes left to go to get it back to 10. Tennessee's able to close it out on defense with a defensive stand. And it's interesting this year with Tennessee. It's the best defense they've had under Heupel, and it shows. They've held opponents under 20 points or less every game. Every game. One of the top-rated defenses in all the country. The last teams to hold for the season, teams under 20 points, it turned out 20 or less turned out pretty good. Georgia, and when they won the national championship. Alabama, when they won the national championship. LSU, when they won the national championship. They can just start hitting on a couple. Once again, 0 for 2 on the big plays. Oh, excuse me, and I didn't even mention Chase Nimrod missing a touchdown, cutting across the middle. Wouldn't have been a big play. It would have been a big play, but it would have been a touchdown for him. Drops the ball. He takes that 15-yard slant route to the house. So there's nobody in front of him. He's gone. Connect on that. That's another missed touchdown. So in this game, Nico had good numbers. It's been his best game, I think, offensively. And he should have had 2 more touchdowns added to his stat column and a lot more yards. Didn't happen, but it should have happened. And you keep hoping, well, they've got an easier opponent or just the same opponent as Kentucky this week. In Mississippi State, maybe they can get some things together. Maybe they can connect offensively, get a little bit better rhythm because they got Georgia after Mississippi State. We all know Georgia's good. It's not going to be easy. But that's what they've got coming up if they can start connecting on half the plays, a third of the plays. Shoot. It could be completely different ball games, and the offense can start scoring a little bit. And speaking of Georgia, what an interesting one, a tough, grinded-out game with Georgia, Florida at the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville. Up and down once again. Georgia looked good defensively. Offensively, they struggled. We were only able to score 3 points in the first quarter. Carson Beck threw 2 picks in the game. Obviously not a good ratio. Second quarter, Georgia's able to capitalize on Florida with a big play for the touchdown. I felt like Georgia was in complete control before that pick and that touchdown by Florida. They were. But it was a grind. It was your rivalry game that was going back and forth. And then I think one of the biggest turns obviously was when Levway got hurt. Florida had to go to their third quarterback because Wirtz was already out. So DJ Levway started, and it's just that's a tough uphill climb. As they were able to hang in there, battle them in that third and fourth quarter, but Georgia was able to stretch it out a little bit farther and able to pull it out. And they've got a tough one coming up this week as well. We'll get into that here next. As Texas A&M losing to South Carolina in a 1 week completely changed their trajectory. Like a blink of an eye, it's like, okay, Texas A&M, they're rolling. They look sharp. Only losses are close one to Notre Dame. They looked really dominant. They've looked really good. Lose to South Carolina. All of a sudden now, you're sitting with 1 SEC loss. 2 overall losses on the season. You still have Texas coming up. You lose to Texas, you get 3 losses. And just like that, you're out of the playoff. Now they beat Texas. It's okay. Well, we'll see what happens. Texas 2 losses. Texas A&M 2 losses. That's one of those toss-up decisions. It's almost for teams with 2 losses, 1 loss, but have tougher games coming up. You want Texas A&M to lose. You want to lose to Texas, kind of go ahead and completely clear them from the deck of, okay, that's a 3-loss team. Outside chance, probably not getting in. 3 losses, they're pretty much done, right? That's what you hope for. Completely eliminate them from the picture altogether. But in 1 week, you think, all right, A&M looks well. They're looking good. They've got one more big challenge, and Texas, and they're in. But that speed bump got them, and now they have to fight for their lives. And just amazing what 1 week can do to you. And I mentioned Georgia. I think they should win against Ole Miss, but we've seen Georgia this year. Slow starts. Carson Beck throwing interceptions. Ole Miss has got to get offense. Jackson Dart, he can sling it. Absolutely sling it around. And this is an elimination game for Ole Miss. They're kind of, I think, already on the outside looking in, even with their 2 losses, with who the losses are, of losing to Kentucky already and losing to Alabama. So they're already sitting at 2 losses. They lose to Georgia, they're done, obviously, from the playoff contention. Georgia loses. Gets interesting. Georgia's would have 2 losses. Lost to Ole Miss, lost to Alabama. They still have Tennessee coming up, who should take care of business against Mississippi State before that Georgia-Tennessee matchup in Athens and between the hedges. So it's I like to say it's a week-to-week thing. Another one I'm actually intrigued about, too, is Oklahoma and Missouri. And, yes, we've seen Oklahoma be down, but it's like they're swapping quarterbacks. They finally figured out who they want their quarterback to be, Arnold. And Missouri's they're battling. They don't have any. They still got the South Carolina team that's looked sharp, and they're sitting at 2 losses. Tricky. I think they're better than Oklahoma, but definitely a tricky Oklahoma team that they have to face. And then we have an elimination game, really, in Alabama and LSU. Both teams got 2 losses. From the big picture of the college football playoff, either one of those teams loses, when they're done. They're absolutely out. It's going to be tough. I mean, it's going to be in Death Valley. And they're fighting. They're battling. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an interesting, exciting game between both of these schools who could be eliminated from the playoff contention. And if you would have told me in a 12-team playoff, even this year, Alabama not going, I would have said, whoa, what'd you say? Come again, right? That would be a big thing. And I think I've said this, I know I've said this to people, and I think I've said it on the podcast. I'm pretty sure. You can go back and double check me, listen to some of my old shows. This isn't the same Alabama team under Nick Saban. Is Alabama good? Yeah, they're still good. They're still a threat, of course, but this isn't now your father's Alabama team under Nick Saban anymore. There's just when the best steps down and retires, that's a hard shoes to follow. And it's tough. Alabama's good, but they're not Nick Saban scary. Even when Alabama wasn't as good, what's Nick Saban going to do to find a way to pull this one out? I don't feel that as much with Alabama this year under DeBoer as I did. All right. How are we going to beat Nick Saban in Alabama? It's different. They're good. But with 2 losses already out of a 12-team playoff, if they lose, wow, very surprising. And also, I thought was surprising was the missed opportunity that both Georgia and Florida had. Now, I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking about Jacksonville. As Jacksonville will be renovating their stadium for the next 2 years. So 2026 and 2027. Or you're not following year, obviously. So that means, where's the game going to be played? There's a smart thing to do. And then there's what they did. They decided 2026 is going to be in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz. And then in Tampa, it's going to be at Raymond James where the Bucks play. So that's going to be your neutral site games each of those 2 years. And I get the neutral site in Jacksonville. It's been done forever. It's cool. It is, no doubt. I've been there. I've been to a few games with my Georgia and Florida fans and friends. It's fun. The get together of friends and family and just hanging out down in Jacksonville for the weekend, enjoying the beach because it's still warm enough. Sometimes it's kind of hit or miss, obviously, in Jacksonville in October around Halloween time. So there's that, but it's a missed opportunity to not do a home and home. The crowd noise it's just so much different, and to me it can impact a game. Going to the Swamp, going to Athens, those are loud stadiums. Haven't been to the games in the Swamp, been to some games at Georgia. Loud. That stadium can get loud. It can get ruckus, and a Florida team coming in, regardless of how good they are, it can affect you. Crowd noise, you see it all the time. It's like, look at the Alabama-Tennessee game in Knoxville. The false start, the penalties, the pre-snap penalties, the motion. Why? It's so loud they can't hear. How loud third downs can be, first downs can be. You can't hear a thing you're trying to audible. You have to burn early timeouts sometimes. That can affect a game. Wouldn't you like to have 2 timeouts driving in the fourth quarter or before halftime? Instead, you might have 1 or none because you had to burn a stupid one early because you couldn't get the play in, because you wanted to avoid that delay of game. That matters. And I think another missed opportunity, and Kirby said this, it's a recruiting aspect of it. They can't bring recruits to the Georgia-Florida game in Jacksonville because it's a neutral site. You're not allowed to bring recruits to neutral site game. Bring recruits to the Georgia-Florida game in Athens, in the Swamp. Like, how much of a difference against a big rivalry game that would be. And here's a third one, too. This goes for the fans and the players, I think. If you're a Georgia fan, and you travel to all these games, you plan a trip. Ooh, heck yeah. We've never gone to Austin. So, you know what? We're going to go to Austin. For the longest time, Georgia had never played. It's been a long time since they played in Tuscaloosa. That's a trip. You go and play in Tuscaloosa? Heck yeah, on a Saturday. Sign me up at night or at 3:30, Same thing, vice versa. To go for fans from the opposing fan base to go to a game in the Swamp, in Sanford Stadium. Just to see it, just to experience it, to see your team play. Hopefully you see a win. And that's quite frankly what I think it should be. Every third year in Jacksonville. So basically, if you're a junior, if you're there in the league in 3 years, you get a home, an away, and in a Jacksonville. I mean, that would be, obviously, I'm talking about if you're a freshman coming in, obviously 3 years, you go to the league. What a perfect setup to me. If you ask me, if you ask my humble, honest opinion, I think that's the best setup of how it should be. And just even these 2 one-offs and very much a missed opportunity for both of these athletes. Oh, yeah. And the money part that you would receive from a home and a home. Yeah, that would be pretty nice too, as opposed to splitting it and everything they get from Jacksonville. Oh yeah, I forgot about the money aspect. That might be it. That would be a nice little cha-ching as well. It missed opportunity, and it is a shame. It really is a shame to have two one-offs, home and home, in Gainesville and Athens. It's too bad. So as you follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media, Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You've listened to Lock It Down Sports. I'm Locke Hoover. I'll talk to you next week.